Hello and welcome back to Rock Cycle. Hope you're having a good time in self-isolation. I'm sure you've been busy binge watching all the classic Rock Cycle videos up on YouTube. I'm having an alright time too, thanks for asking, even if I've had to make a bit of an improv backdrop and I haven't been able to buy a new beard trimmer which I so desperately need, I'm sure you can see. Anyway, today we're looking at one of the biggest but most controversial bands of the 21st century, and that is the 1975, and we're going to look at if they're overrated or overhated. So if you're new around here, this is a little series we do on the channel where we look at some of the biggest and most popular bands there are in the world, but they're also bands who have got quite a lot of hate and they are extremely controversial. And we look at why people like them, why they hate them, and I think the 1975 are the perfect band for this. The next band in this series I'm planning on looking at is Coldplay, so if you want a chance for your comment to get featured in a video for all that free YouTube clout, let me know down in the comments. Do you love Coldplay, do you hate them, and let me know why. But anyway, today we're looking at the 1975, so we're going to look at what I think about them, we're going to look at why people love them in general, going to look at some of your comments from the last video, and then we're going to look at some of the criticisms and some of the counter arguments to the criticisms. But first of all, we have to say, hating the 1975 is not a personality trait. No. Now, I'm not a 1975 fanboy by any means. In fact, I do like making a joke, taking the piss out of them every now and again. But I am sick to death of people hating on them on Twitter because they think it makes them edgy because they don't like a band that's very popular, like, "Ooh, look at me, I'm so different." It's like, ugh, we get it, you don't like them, move on. And that is all coming from someone who was admittedly a bit like that back in the day. But anyway, my thoughts on the 1975. I'm going to try and keep this video as unbiased as possible, but I thought I should let you know what I think of them. When I first heard of them, when they released their first self-titled album, I knew Sex and a couple of the other big songs off it, but I never properly went in to listen to them. I thought they were decent, they were quite enjoyable, but I was never that fussed about them. And I was kind of saying for Brief Inquiries and I Like It When You Sleep because you fell asleep listening to this album title. I always thought they were decent, but I never really loved them. But I think the thing that really bugged me was everyone else thought they were so amazing, thought they were the best band in the world, and that just bugged me. I was like, ugh, they're an alright pop rock band, and that's it. And it's just the way everyone loved them just annoyed me so much and ended up making me dislike them quite a bit because I couldn't understand all this love for them. But in the past year or two, I have changed my tune a bit, and I have got more into them. Yeah, I'm still not like #1 1975 fan, but I can enjoy a fair few of their songs. Now let's look at why people in general loved them. The 1975 are one of the biggest and most inventive bands of the 21st century. They have completely redefined the indie scene with their experimentation, often incorporating elements of other genres such as pop, 80s, synth, electronic, and even a little bit of punk every now and again. And this combination of all these other big mainstream friendly genres combining into their indie rock sound has really opened their doors to so many more fans than a typical indie rock band, which only has a fairly limited fan base. They've produced straight #1 hit after #1 hit that instantly gets stuck in your head and you find yourself singing along to all the time, no matter how much you may dislike that song. They really pushed the boundaries of what a band can do, and everything they have done, no matter the style, has been an absolute masterclass. So let's now move on to some of the comments from the last video. I feel this is exposing a bit the low budget setup we got going on here, but first comment from Dave saying he loves Oasis, hates the 1975, fight me. Oof, I'm sure there's a lot of people on Indie Stan Twitter who will happily fight you to the death over that. God, this is going to look terrible in the video, but we then have Alvy saying, I think the 1975 will be a class video. Oof, I hope this is living up to your expectations. To be honest, I can see why they do get a lot of the criticism they get, but personally I love them. I think they've really cleaned up their acts. This is the second album, and their upcoming album is looking to be one of the most exciting projects they've ever done. I certainly agree with that. From what we've heard so far of their upcoming album, it seems they've really taken a lot of the criticisms on board, and this album seems to be a bit of a response to a lot of that. So maybe everything that's going to be looked at in this video will be completely irrelevant once the album finally comes back, as long as it's not delayed yet another time. The live act is unparalleled to me in terms of stage design. Yes, they are great, but they have such a high production value on their live shows, and I think it makes for an amazing live experience. I know some people love that and some people hate it. A lot of people seem to view it as a bit cheap in a way of hyping up your show without any musical talent. But I think as long as you're talented as well, it just adds to the atmosphere and makes the whole experience a lot more fun and a lot better. And like their music or not, the things they're doing for the fight against climate change and other important issues are outstanding. No one is doing it like the 1975. Yes, I fully agree with that. I love a band that uses their stage to promote important issues such as climate change, and I think they are pretty much unparalleled. I mean, there's a few other bands, yeah, there are quite a few other bands out there doing similar things, but no one who else is doing it has a audience and a reach as big as the 1975, so it's great to see them doing things like that. And last up we have Ollie. The 1975 are my favourite band, but I do understand why some people find them annoying, especially Matt Healy, who comes across as a bit obnoxious. Now don't worry, we are definitely getting into Matt Healy and his personality, because that is a very controversial subject. So thanks everyone for the comments. If you want your comment to be in the next video, leave it down below about what you think to do with Coldplay. So now we're going to look at the criticisms of the 1975. I've put these into 3 categories pretty much based on what I've seen like on Twitter and what other social media and what I've heard from friends and seen on videos online. First one is that they sound the same. I haven't heard this criticism as much recently, but this was certainly a big criticism of them early on. And to be honest, I think it's kind of true for like the singles of each album. The big singles can be a bit similar. And I think it's certainly true of all the 1975 songs that have got big. A lot of the songs that get big is because they get played on the radio a lot and because they reach a very broad audience, and because of that they're very safe songs, they're very mainstream, radio friendly, they're very poppy, very upbeat, synth, indie rock. That's all built around a catchy chorus. But when you do delve deeper into their music away from just the mainstream singles, I think you find this criticism doesn't really stand up that well. Yeah, they do have a fair few songs that are fairly formulaic, even if it is the 1975's unique formula. But then when you look properly, there's a lot more diverse songs going on. 2 of my favourite songs from the band couldn't be more different. We've got the slow emotional ballad of Somebody Else and the aggressive post-punk People. Now these 2 songs sound absolutely nothing alike, and nothing at all like really their songs that get big in the charts. So while I certainly think you could say some of their songs do sound the same, I think when you properly listen to the band you realise they do have a very broad sound, and that criticism isn't really a fair criticism of them. The next main criticism I've seen is that the 1975 aren't that original. Now I don't really think this would be a criticism of the 1975 if there wasn't a horde of 1975 stans on Twitter talking about how they're the most original and inventive band of the 21st century, or pretty much forever, I've seen some people claim. So I think all those die-hard fans have then prompted a lot of people to be like, nah mate, they're not actually that original. Besides, I don't really think any band ever is truly original, besides maybe, well, a caveman band back in the day because they were the first band ever. Yes, synth pop is hardly a new thing, but I think the way that 1975 have done indie rock, which has incorporated synth pop, really is quite unique, and I haven't seen that really done before. Maybe it has been and I just wasn't aware of it. So yeah, they've taken styles that were big and popular in the past, but they've built on them and they've changed them up into their own unique sound, which I think is the best any band can realistically do. And I think like the 2 songs we just mentioned before, Somebody Else and People, I can't think of any song off the top of my head that sounds particularly like them. I think again it's a bit of the problem that their mainstream songs are songs that are mainstream friendly because they're very safe, they're very familiar despite being a bit new. But they're more risque songs, well because they're risque they don't have such a broad audience, so people aren't really aware of their songs, which are probably a lot more purely original. So I think overall that criticism, yes, the 1975 aren't completely brand new original because no band ever is, but they're a lot more original than some people give them credit for, and they're a lot less original than some other people credit them for. And now on to the last but probably the biggest criticism of the 1975, and that is Matt Healy is a twat with a capital T. There are far too many examples of this to go through them all right now, but the one that really sticks out to me that I mainly remember is at Leeds Fest, back up here, look, here they are. And they headline, they end their show, which they end most of their shows with saying, rock is dead, long live the 1975. I just thought it was so arrogant considering that Foo Fighters, they played the night before to a crowd almost twice the size of the 1975, and Foo Fighters are as much straightforward rock as you can get. And they also sold out tickets months before the 1975. There's also a recent bit of Twitter drama with Matt Healy where he was making, well, what I'd say is just a bad joke about artists who are struggling right now because of the coronavirus. A lot of musicians are like going, ooh, buy our LPs, buy our albums to help support us because we've had to cancel the tours. And he was taking the piss out of that a bit. I can see why he can do that. I think it was meant to be a fairly harmless joke. But at the same time, I certainly see why people who have basically lost their job, they've lost all their income and they're suffering and they may get kicked out of the house and all those problems. I can see why they are pretty pissed off with Matt Healy for making light of the situation. Matt Healy completely oozes arrogance. He's very self-righteous and very self-assured. A lot more than he certainly deserves to be. He certainly doesn't think a lot before he speaks, and that's always causing problems where he makes some fairly bad points or says something that's a bit hypocritical, and he's been called out for various things multiple times. He said things on a wide range of issues, but a lot of the things that have pissed people off is when he talks about how good and how amazing his band is. Now, yes, the 1975 is an insanely talented band, but I don't think they're as great or original as he thinks they are. And anyway, being talented isn't a free pass to be a knobhead. A lot of people completely love him, and I think the more people love him, the people that dislike him get more pissed off at like, why are you loving this guy that's clearly a bit of an idiot and a bit of a self-righteous twat. So the more people love him, the more people hate him, and I think the more people that hate him, it makes more people love him. But that all being said, Matt Healy has done plenty of reasons to justify loving him. As we mentioned before, he's done great work with the environment and raising awareness, and are doing great things for their upcoming shows, if they do happen because of the disease I'm not allowed to mention on YouTube. Well, he's making a lot of his shows a lot more environmentally sustainable. He's also done a lot of great social justice work, a lot to do with tolerance and things like abortion, which I think it's great to have someone in his position of power to bring attention to, even if he hasn't always handled some of those cases particularly well. But it becomes very confusing when on one hand he's this great social hero and on the other hand he's a bit of a dickhead. I think one side doesn't rule out the other side. I think both are true simultaneously. But when it comes to music, people like to deal in black and white. So you either love an artist or you don't like them. And I think people are applying that thinking to do with music, that way of thinking and that mindset to a person. And people are a lot more complex than that. God, I feel like I'm getting into a whole psychology lecture here, so I'm going to try stop it around now before I get far too out of my depth. So yes, he's done a lot of things to give people a full reason to be pissed off with him, and yes, he's done a lot of things to give people a full reason to love him, and I guess it's up to you to decide what you think is more important to you. There's also the whole argument about separating the art from the artist, but I think that's a full video in itself. I have had some people say to me that he puts on a bit of a character and he plays into all this arrogance. And I've had a bit of a look around and I couldn't find anything concrete to say that that's true. Maybe there is and I've missed it. If I have, let me know down in the comments. And my guess from what I've seen of him is that may be a bit true, and I think he certainly puts on this big egotistical personality, but I think it's built on truth and it is just an exaggeration of who he is. So overall, I'm going to come to the conclusion personally that the 1975 are both at the same time overrated and overhated simultaneously. This may be the second video in this series, but I feel I've just defeated the whole point of it. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think they are overrated or do you think they are overhated? I'd be very curious to see what you have to say because this is such a polarising topic. As always, really hope you enjoyed watching. Like, share, subscribe, the usual YouTube shit. Get back to binge watching the classic rock cycle videos, and I'll see you in the next one.